Hello, this is MJ Renshaw, and you are listening to the Being Method podcast. Let's start by taking a big deep breath together.
Hello, Jason. I'm so excited to have you on the Being Method podcast. For everybody listening, Jason works predominantly with men, who are married and or have kids, and he's helping men heal emotionally, to put it very vaguely. So, Jason, can you talk about what are the common problems with the men that you are working with?
Yeah, well, super stoked to be here, MJ. Thanks for having me. And as far as men go, and the men that reach out to me, or the men's wives that interestingly reach out to me for them, a lot of times, like practically what they're struggling with in life is, you know, lots and lots of things are going well. Their job, they've hit certain like check boxes that we'll just say society and culture has told them that this is what they're supposed to do. But the thing is they're struggling at home. And typically and practically how that shows up is for whatever reason, especially when they get kids and have kids, is a lot of times the smallest thing will set them off, and well, you could say it in a lot of different ways, but they'll have a short fuse. They'll fly off the handles. They'll go from 0 to 100. A lot of times they'll find themselves raising their voice or their tone changes with their 4 year old or their 10-year old or their 15-year old, seemingly out of nowhere. And, guys will come in and say, "Hey, I don't have an anger problem, but here's what's going on for me." And it's interesting because it's not anywhere else. Usually it's not at work. Usually it's not around friends. If somebody that is an acquaintance or, like I said, they work with were to actually see them in their home environment, it's almost like they would be unrecognizable to that person. And I'll be honest, most of the guys that I talk to like really have and sincerely, genuinely have no idea why or how that's happening to them.
Okay, amazing. For everybody listening, Jason and I are going to talk about mostly healthy relationships. I'm going to put a disclaimer in the show notes for people who think that they might be in an abusive relationship, and some resources there for you. And Jason, I don't work in this world, so I would love if you could just maybe give some. I know the line can be gray when
Mm,
you love someone because you can see all their past and their trauma and their hurt and see how they would get to where they are. So if you could just give a guideline for people listening to know when should someone call it, say like I'm in
yeah.
an abusive relationship, right? Like this person they're yelling at my kids a lot, or they are being physical with my kids or with me. What are some just general guidelines for someone?
Yeah. Well, I mean, personally, I think that, physicality is like zero. I think there should be like a zero tolerance for that. Any kind of like physical stuff going on. And I think like, because you're right, that it is kind of gray with like, couples fight. Like getting into conflict is going to be a thing. But I think the key to tune into is like, how do they respond afterwards? Like, how willing are they to take responsibility for, like, for example, if you're like, hey, your tone. And is it like you're too sensitive? Or is it like, huh, yeah, I'm starting to notice that I'm having like you're saying that consistently. And are they willing to do anything about it? Right? Or are they just basically saying like, hey, this is the way I am and deal with it? So yeah, all couples and relationships fight, but like when you bring up a transgression, like are they able to reflect inward and, attempt to do better over time? That's what I would say that's like the biggest indicator.
I love that. That's great advice and very true for my relationship. Like, I think the one thing, no, you're never going to find a perfect person. We come to relationships with our wounds and our triggers, and sometimes you don't find that trigger until like 5 years in. And something happens, and
Yeah.
you're just like, whoa, I just watched your eyes go black. Speaking from experience, for my husband and I, we both, especially after kids, like found that in each other. There was one time I like banged on the table, and there was one time that he raised his voice at me.
Hmm.
And we have not done that to each other since.
That's great.
You
Yeah.
talk about it after and you're like, whoa, like I was not like, what happened
Yeah.
there? Did I go evil? And then, you don't want to hurt the people that you love. So you do the work necessary
Yeah.
in order to heal that part of you that got triggered and not,
Hmm.
you know, do that to your family. So, okay. So back to the conversation. So if you're someone, who's thinking, okay, this is happening to me a lot, to my kids a lot. There's no change. They're not taking responsibility. The blame is put on us, yada, yada,
Yeah.
yada. Please go to the resources. I'm not going to give advice just because I know it's actually very dangerous, like
Yeah.
statistically incredibly dangerous. I was just sharing with Jason a little bit of my story, and the real reason why I'm having him on this podcast was I grew up in a home with a dad who was really abusive, and not to me. Like, he treated me like gold, but to my mom, terrible. I ended up being, at 8 years old, had to call the police on my own dad and put him in jail. And he had a
Mm.
restraining order, and that was it. My family was basically over then. But I watched that escalate for years, and it's not a fun place to grow up. It is horrid. And I can't imagine what it would have been like for my mom. Like, we were staying in women's shelters sometimes. We had escape bags. My mom was not safe to leave him. It was not safe for her at all to leave. She was completely stuck. So, it's a pretty serious topic, but it's also one in which, like, there is so much room for healing. And a lot of the
Mm.
men who are, you know, there's a possibility for people to heal. I always believe that. And I think, a lot of these men grew up in households where that happened to them too. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's so whenever I see men online who are doing the work that you're doing, Jason, or something around that, I always feel like a little piece of my inner child heals a little bit, because
Mm.
I wish my dad had had someone like you to work with. So back to Jason. I have a question. I was going to ask you this deeper into the interview, but do you think that underneath the anger is sadness?
Yeah. That's a great question. I think definitely, usually, yes. And I think it's a cascade of lots of emotions. And it's like an iceberg, kind of, right? You see the 20% on top. Usually that's like anger and frustration, right? And stress, maybe anxiety, all the things. But yeah, like I think underneath that is a huge, huge amount of sadness, grief, loneliness, hurt, all the things, if you will. And actually, I have like a little, I'll call it spiel, but practically like why this happens, I feel like. And honestly, like boil it down to it is like when you think about like what's an emotion, what are somatics, what are all the things? It's like chemicals and feelings in your body, right? Basically neck down stuff. And most men have like zero practice regulating them, right? We're taught and modeled from a really young age to basically bypass or not feel. And not only that, we're shown that like it's not safe to do that. Whether it's like, basically, you get made fun of or told to suck it up, don't be a baby. You see like all the movies where the hero that's a dude is basically like brushing it off like it's fine, and like they're carrying this immense amount of like pressure, stress, right? Sadness, grief, guilt, anger, all the things, shame, etc. And it's like the noble thing to do, right? And eventually, when you think about like, okay, how do most men like get recognized in society, generally speaking, it's like by performing, right? Whether it be sports, whether it be in the business, finance, entrepreneurial world, like the top men are, revered by and get rewarded usually by their pick of dating in the dating world. They have access to resources. They are looked up to by other guys. And in order to get there, like typically you have to do things that other people don't do or can't do and put yourself in situations that are like high pressure, high stress. Well, it's actually like works really well in their favor to not feel feelings, right? Practically speaking, they can push through things that other people wouldn't push through. So, on one hand, it's like they're shown like don't do that, and it's like okay, I won't feel those feelings because that's like embarrassing or whatever it is. And then like you get rewarded from a monetary standpoint and like a status standpoint. And eventually you get to a point where it's like there's a everybody's got a breaking point, right? You just can't like you can't not feel your feelings forever. Something's going to give. And typically that shows up when you get into a relationship, right? Because like everybody wants like togetherness, closeness as much as we want all these things. It's like it's not the same if we're all by ourselves, right? And of course, we get into a relationship, get married, have kids, don't get married, have kids, whatever. Like we pick somebody, and then guess what? Shit gets harder. It's like you have one kid, more difficult, two kids, more difficult, right? And like there's varying degrees of difficulties as kids get older. And eventually, like something works until it doesn't, right? And that's where things start coming into play where it's like, okay, eventually, there's these like spurts of anger, right, that come out usually directed towards a kid, right? Or their wife or somebody close to them. And they're like, what's going on with me? Right? That being said, the thing that's happening is like an amplified version of what has been there the entire time, right? Most of these guys that I talk to, they're like, yeah, this thing's always been here, right? I've always kind of had this thing. And it's interesting, like when we start to like get into the work, all guys notice when like we start working on like somatics or emotion stuff, when like, the last time they got upset with their kid, it's like, well, what was specifically happening? Well, my kid was crying over something. And like the feeling is anger and frustration. And I'm like, interesting. Like anger and frustration, right? And when you get to the bottom of it, it's like typically, generally, it's like there's a sense of powerlessness, right? Powerlessness, being out of control, being overwhelmed. But like the root of the matter is like there's sadness, right? There's hurt, and you can do nothing about it, right? And usually, of course, like, that's all rooted in your nervous system. And there's a direct correlation to that. And like basically their experiences growing up, which exactly usually reflect all the things that I just talked about. And so it's like, it's this big ball of, man, does it come out in an unhealthy way? And especially now, it seems like men are really getting the like, they're at the, I wouldn't say tip of the spear, but they're at the bludgeon of like criticism for everything right now. Because a lot of it's true, right? On one hand, but on the other hand, it's like most of the time weren't given the proper tools. And let's be honest, like most people aren't given the proper tools, guy or girl, whatever, to be able to actually know what's going on for themselves. And they're kind of like at the whim of, and like at the graces of, how was it? How was your environment? And like, what did your parents give you? Basically, or what did other people around you give you, your primary caregivers, to where like, did you have the tools or not? It's kind of like luck of the draw almost, because there's no like, they don't teach it in school. It was kind of like a long-winded way to answer that question.
No, that was amazing. Thank you. It is, I think a lot of it does. Well, I just had to do a bunch of research on the male loneliness epidemic. And I like my algorithms have all infiltrated men. Like my algorithm thinks I'm a man. So
Yeah,
I've shown a lot of, men are feeling extremely unseen, lonely, beat
100%.
down, lumped in with a lot of bad guys. And
Yeah,
and statistically, a lot of it, I mean, it is men. Like, let's be honest, like men are
yeah,
doing the most messed up stuff all the time.
right. Yeah,
But then, there's a lot of good guys who aren't, but a lot of it is it's man hating. Like it's man hating online. It doesn't matter who you are,
yeah,
where you come from. And I think while, I'm not a man, so my perspective is like, well, if you got a problem, with what your bros are doing, get out there and change what they're doing. You know what I mean? Like that's the
Yeah.
responsibility piece of it. But at the same time, it also sucks because like, a lot of men were never even given a chance. Like guys
Right.
grew up, my generation grew up. Your form of intimacy that you learned with another piece of another person was like watching porn.
Yeah.
And then in terms of getting like love, connection, you weren't really given that. Really. Like a lot like my husband's dad has never said I love you to him. And now he's trying to father with tools that he was never taught, never given, right? So you're pouring from like the emptiest empty cup in the world. You're trying to recreate an entire generation of men doing, a 180.
Yeah.
It is it's it's a lot. I mean, just the content that I have been shown is like my heart bleeds like because it is while women I think struggle with, objectification, like when it boils down to it at the end of the day, society's going to look at you and be like, how young are you? How fertile are you? How beautiful are you?
Hmm.
That's your usefulness. And then with men, it's like, what have you accomplished? How
Yeah. What
tall
can
are
you do?
you? How much money do you have?
Hmm.
And it's like there are pockets in the world in which that doesn't exist, right? There are people out there that don't care. They just want a good heart, but it's hard to see, it's a lot of the stuff is just it's like, the patriarchy really is a double-edged sword. It just harms men so much.
Yeah. And it's like, because I think, obviously think a lot about this. And it's like, because there's so much that has had to happen in the world to get us where we are. And the thing is like, it's, I don't know, just call it a privilege. It's like right now, it's never been easier to be alive for a lot of people. And it's interesting because, you know, I get a lot of stuff online about like the things that I talk about like that I believe are just like kind of basic, which is like, hey, probably not a good idea to yell at your kids for like the first 2 decades of their life, because that's actually going to have some not so good impacts on them, right? In their adulthood. And it's crazy the pushback that I get, like, your type of parenting, blah blah blah, or the way you're modeling being a dad is the reason why everybody is so depressed and anxious and soft and blah blah blah. And I'm like, look, people have been experiencing depression and anxiety since the beginning of time. Like the one through line for everybody basically is grief, right? We all experience grief. We all experience like these hardships, and it's like actually can bring us closer together. But I digress. It's like we are in the first like generation or two where technology now has allowed us the time and the abundance to slow down enough to actually feel our own feelings. It's, and the things that come up first are the shitty ones. Sorry. That's just how it works, right? So this is like a normal, I would say that's like a normal thing, and it's actually a really healthy thing that like everybody's kind of getting in touch with their, depression and anxiety. That being said,
Famously dropping my book, How to Cry.
yeah, yeah, no,
Just kidding, but this is what my book is all about. The research behind, like, if you suppress your emotions, you're going to make yourself physically ill. And that's just
yeah,
like the worst thing that happens. The best thing that could possibly happen is you're just horrible to be around. People
yeah,
won't want to talk to you, be intimate with you. You won't even know how to be intimate with another person. We all have people like this in our lives. Like,
totally.
they don't know what they're feeling. They don't have any emotional intelligence. They have no space for your feelings. Like, the people where you're like you're having a genuine emotion and they don't know how to hold that. They're
Yeah,
uncomfortable with it. They shame you for it, or
mm-hmm,
they're not even going to go there with you. And
yeah,
it's like, how do you have a family and have them know you and you know them without having emotional experiences with them? You won't.
that's right.
You're going to be alone. Like, that's the male loneliness epidemic. It's like,
Yeah,
there's no emotional intelligence. You're shamed. You're called gay if you're vulnerable.
yeah, yeah.
That's crazy, right?
That's what
And
I grew up
later that
with.
leads to heart attacks and cancer. That culture is literally killing people,
Yeah,
men and women. But yeah,
totally. I mean, I couldn't agree more, MJ. And And like where I'm going with this, like with men, and like why it's like so difficult, and like the male loneliness epidemic, and like, hey, how do you not relate all that stuff? It's like most of the time, dudes don't even get like space to even figure out like who they are, all the things. Like people in general don't really. It's like it's so crazy that like, get done with school and they're like, "What do you want to do for the rest of your life?" It's like I have no idea, right? Because like man, I could go on so many different tangents right now.
No, let's go. Because I
Okay.
was just, but it's interesting. Like, I'm a woman, right? So we have a menstrual cycle, and that comes, and that's kind of like our rite of passage into a world of more responsibility. But
Hmm.
men don't have that.
Right.
There's no rite of passage that says, like, hey, you've been here, and now here's this mark in time that's going to take you from being this person to now there's more things on your shoulder. And this
Right.
is how you do, and this is how you act. And I just like, I have a son. I think about this all the time. I'm like, how am I going to take him from being a kid and letting him be a kid, like
Yeah.
letting him just bugs all day, to
Totally.
ushering him to being a person who has a sense of responsibility to his community without that being crippling.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's just like a complete lost art. Like we just don't have that in modern day society. The closest thing that we have to it is like sports a little bit, or like martial arts. Yeah, so like we don't have that rite of passage anymore. Like period, right? Well, as far as Western society is considered. And the closest thing that we have is like sports and martial arts. That's why I'm such a big proponent in martial arts, because like in my own personal experience, it is one of the things that really gave me that sense of I did something hard, I learned something, I'm feeling like physically capable more than like I did before, to where like I can handle myself now, right? And there's an innate thing that you get that somebody else can't take from you, right? And it's like that's the whole point of those like rite of passages. Like you do something that's hard that like you didn't think that you could do, but then you kind of prove to yourself in like the village or the community that you can do it and you're capable of doing it. And I guess I should add the military. The military's kind of like still got that too. But then like but the other part of that is like that is like a performance, that's like a push through, that's like a kind of not feel. So kind of like where I was going with all this is like we're at a point now where like you life's not quite as hard, even though it's still hard, right? Like you just like a lot of guys just don't have a choice, and they don't have like we don't have a system set up yet to where it's like there's space to like figure this shit out, right? Because like in groups of men, it's like every guy I talk to is basically like, yeah, I can talk to my friends, but I can't talk to them about stuff like this, right? And I'm like, oh, great, the fucking core shit that like, is there, but nobody wants to say that it's there. And if you bring it up, basically the guys that they're with is just like, yeah, ha ha ha. But then like, how about them Dodgers? Or like, it just like kind of gets swept under the rug, basically amongst guy friends. And so like guys have this thing that they're holding, but that they never basically get to set down. And like when you think about like, even just like 100 years ago, like early 1900s, it's like you didn't again have the time or I guess the word is privilege to just like stop and slow down. It's like you had to go, and if you didn't go, you dead. You are dead, and your family's dead, and like everybody was relying on you, right? And we're kind of like evolving out of like survival mode into like people wanting, more out of life, I think. And the gateway to get what people want basically is like to feel your feelings. And what do people want? It's like they don't want to be lonely. They want connection. And just the way it works is like when you start doing that, like you get in touch with the not so fun stuff first.
You mentioned that you're getting a lot of DMs from wives.
Hmm.
So, and I'm assuming they're listening to this right now,
Okay. Yeah,
right?
probably.
What would you say to someone who is watching her person struggle
Yeah.
and he plays hockey. I'm in Canada, so they all play hockey.
Yeah.
In the change room, it's just let's make fun of each other for a bit and then drink a beer and we'll go home. And, you know, obviously people who suppress their emotions, they're going to turn to certain things to suppress them more, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be drinking, drugs, work, gambling, all the fun stuff.
Yeah.
Um, what can someone do? Like in my mind, it would just be like sitting them down and be like, we got a problem and
Yeah.
we have to figure it out. Like what can someone do?
Yeah. It's a good question because I do get a lot of wives, fiancés, girlfriends DMing me like, hey, like, what if they don't get, like, I just had one this morning that was, I posted something about like, be the calm, not the storm. It's like, what if like he's the storm and he doesn't realize he's the storm, right? Because like basically the good and the not so good is like he has to want to do this, right? It's not something that you can just like do it to make her happy because you got to want it. But also, the thing is like most of the guys that choose into it, like, are in like a really uncomfortable situation, right? Pain, right? Can be beautiful, but it can be difficult. That point in someone's life, in a man's life, where it's like, hey, the pain of the present outweighs the pain of change. So it's like they finally choose into that. And that can be created, over the course of 10, 15, 20 years. But like all you can do is like, of course, ideally you want to notice it early. And ideally, like your significant other is open to like being encouraged by you, right? And like kind of like calling them up with your desire, like an encouragement, like, hey, you're a good man. And like this thing here, whatever it is that happened, like I really want to work on this together, right? And like you have to have like going back to like what's healthy relationship or not, like it starts with like knowing your own stuff and it's like, ooh, this is really uncomfortable. Where's my boundary around this? Right. And like being able to bring that up, however directly that you can in a way that ideally isn't criticism, right? Because that's the hardest part because usually it's like hurts you and then it's like, how do you respond to that? So can you do that in a way that's like encouraging and invites them in? But yeah, ultimately it's like, and of course, like we talked about earlier, this is for a healthy relationship where you guys are missing each other and there's like a level of receptivity. But at some point, it's like boundaries for yourself. Like when the storm comes, it's like, hey, I'm not participating in this storm. Like this isn't healthy. And I don't want this for me. I don't want this for my kids. Right. And like the fortunate or unfortunate thing is like most men won't do anything because it's not painful enough for them, right? And I'm not saying to like make his life painful, but like when you don't participate and like you hold a boundary, it's like a mirror. And so like every dude, whether or not they blame you or not, because that's where a lot of guys are. It's like, it's not me, it's you, you're too sensitive, whatever it is, right? At some point, they're either going to look at themselves in the mirror or they're not, right? There's no guarantees of like making a relationship last. But what I will say is like most guys, when they're like looking at themselves in the mirror, it's like, oh, fuck, right? It's like, okay, well then what's the end of this road here? We get divorced and like whose fault is it? And it's her fault. And it's like, well, is it really her fault? She keeps on saying this thing and keep on, and it's like, huh, all right, maybe I should fucking call Jason. And that's like seriously where I find a lot of guys is like, hey, actually my wife found you. And it's like, I didn't find you, but I also know. So it's like him saying like, she's right. I just don't know what to do about it. And like I will say, most of the guys that choose into this work, it's like, yes, they are in situations where they're not responding the way that you want them to. They're raising their voice, right? Maybe it's like a little scary or feeling unsafe, right? Because you're not sure when the next thing's going to happen. But ultimately, a lot of these guys like have a desire to be better. Like they're doing everything they can in the way that they were shown or like that has been acceptable to them. They just have like this big hole over here. And like I jokingly say, it's like, bro, you're skipping leg day. Right? Because a lot of times, like they've worked really hard in all these areas, again, all the areas that we talked about, but there's this like huge hole there that, practically speaking, is like creating a wedge or like this big black hole between them and like everybody that they care about in their lives. I've had guys that like seriously are worth like hundreds of millions of dollars, and they're like, I would just give it all up to be normal, right? And really, what's that? It's like they're very lonely, right? And the crazy part is the further they go and the more they achieve, the lonelier they get because they are at a place that everybody looks up to as the place. But you get to that place and you're like, fuck, it's nice, but it's like a different kind of lonely because, like, you play the little violin, right? Everybody, like, this is the joke for guys, like, oh, play me a violin, right? And less people are sitting in your audience, right? Because they're like, what are you talking? Like, what does Jason have to complain about? What does he really have to complain about? Right. And the truth is like, it doesn't matter if you're at the top or in the middle, right? Like, what is there that's not been there is like the missing of feeling a feeling, basically. And to your point, MJ, basically the feeling that they're usually missing feeling is something like, I'm sad. And I don't know how to share that or let that out or let that go and not carry it with me and not be okay.
I love that. There's some proverbs that I really like. There's one, I think it's from Japan, but it says, if you want to know a man's character, look at his wife's face.
Mm,
And like if she has, she presents as peaceful and joyous, he's a good man. And
yeah.
there's another one, I don't know where it came from, and I'm actually just forgetting it. It's gone. But there, it's
We'll come back
in
when it
that
comes
like
to it.
of I remember it. If you want to judge a man's character, ask his wife.
Mm, that's really
Because
good.
like if you get the girls alone and like a
Yeah.
couple of glasses of Chardonnay, I can tell exactly whose husband is doing
Yeah.
any sort of work, right? Like they will
Yeah.
drag him so fast.
Yeah.
And it's horrible, but also at the same time, it's like there's no point in being at the top if you're alone.
That's right.
It's like, I don't know. I think about, for me, I'm a woman in the business world. I judge men hard on their whatever access to their family life I can get,
Yeah.
that I will judge them hard. If they're a man who's, chronically cheated, there's been a bunch of divorces, yada, 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 his kids are unhappy with him, that character is going to come into business. Like if he's
Yeah.
going to do that to the people he's like sleeping with and having Christmas with, what
Yeah.
is he going to do to you? And this is like all over the internet right now, but it's also very real. Like this is an important part of someone's character, is how are you treating the people you love?
Yeah. 100%. And that's like, I mean, that's where I find most guys is like, I'm treating the people that I do business with better than the people that I love. And it's like, I don't know why. And their thing is like, well, yeah, if I did that over there, then I get fired. And it's like, dude, it works the same way over here, right? It's just not like a meeting in my office and like see you later. It's like you find out 20 years later sometimes.
That like brings us so perfectly back to your point of like what can women do? And I get asked similar things, but not with
Yeah,
husbands who are, dealing with their anger or sadness or emotional issues, but more addiction. And I always, because I grew up with a dad who was an addict, and I always say the only thing you can do is decide what you're comfortable with in
that's
terms of
right.
being around that person, because they may not change.
Yeah,
So you can choose to be a part of their life or not. And you have to set the standard. Like, this is what I want in a relationship. I do
right,
not want to be yelled at. It makes me feel uncomfortable. It makes me feel unsafe. It
right.
makes me feel the least turned on I've ever been in my life. It
Yeah,
makes me not feel free in my own house. So that's that. Like, you
yeah,
decide what you want from me from there. And if it continues, I'm not gonna be here around
yeah,
here, right? Like, it's like those are the standards. And then hopefully that person is like, oh shit, like, wow, this person doesn't want to be treated that way. I gotta do something about this.
totally. And that's like going back to something that you said earlier, MJ. It's like sometimes we don't find that out until like 5 years in, 10 years in. Because the truth is like we choose into things based on our unfinished business. And sometimes it takes us 5, 10 years to wake up to like, ooh, this is actually not healthy. That's so weird, right? But that's like the nature of life. That's the nature of like how this stuff works is you're like, because sometimes you can be like, how did I let it get here? How did I get here? And it's like, it's not your fault, right? That's like when you, and I'm sure you've talked about this, it's like, your nervous system basically chooses into familiar, right? Because familiar is safe, not healthy. It's what's familiar. And if familiar is chaos, well, a lot of times you choose into chaos, right? And typically, like every relationship gets to a point where it's like, I can't do this anymore. And it's like, it's not, I can't do this anymore with you. It's like, I can't do this anymore with how it's going. And like one person makes a choice to like heal that. A lot of times, like that's scary for the other person. And that's kind of the crux of the matter in relationships. It's like, when you get into them, it's like, can I be my full self? Everybody, like as healed as they are, thinks that they can do that until they get into a relationship. And they're like, well, should I say that? I don't know. Might rock the boat, right? But we all get to that point where it's like, fuck it. I don't care anymore. I can't do this anymore like this, right? A glass or two of Chardonnay or whatever will bring that out. And it's like, I don't do couples work and I work with men, but like make sure that I keep up with like what healthy relationship and how to do that stuff. One of my favorite therapists is like Terry Real. And he's always like, you have to, like, a passionate, intimate relationship, like one of the foundational pieces is being able to risk the relationship by saying the thing that kind of like needs to be said. So like practically in this situation, if there's something there that's like, you're like, ooh, I'm not okay with this, and you don't say anything, that's actually the fastest way to ensure that the relationship will not last. Regardless of, saying the thing and then like, it might rock the boat. That's true too. But that's the only way you might have an opportunity to change the trajectory or the course of the relationship is by saying the thing.
I love that. It is like you just got to have the fight.
Yeah,
And you don't
basically.
go in thinking I want to have a fight right now. Sometimes it is and it's like but on the other end of that friction is like the
Yeah.
closest you've ever been,
Yeah. The
hopefully.
potential for
And
it.
if it's not, then someone else will be the closest you've ever been.
Yeah. Well, and like for that, it's like that is the possible goal. And I think what's scary about it is it's like it's not a guarantee, right? It's like you're risking, and what it is like it's conflict, and conflict can be uncomfortable, which is why it's like, hey, the best way to do this is like as early as possible and like practically the desire, right? Like I really want to be closer to you, but it's really hard. Like I'm noticing like I'm sensitive to tone of voice, and like when you raise your voice, I feel myself want to run and I don't want that because like I could see down the road how that could end, and it like you don't want to like threaten the relationship per se, but like you want to share with them like how deeply it's impacting you in a way that it's like, hey, like I'm scared. Like I know that you don't mean it, right? Or maybe you don't see it, right? Again, in a healthy relationship, a lot of times guys don't they don't mean to do this thing. This thing is automatically happening. Like I talk to so many guys and I ask them, I'm like, all right, are you choosing that response or is that like something that just happens? And they're like, I'm not choosing it. Right. Some guys would be like, no, I'm choosing it. I'm like, all right, well, why don't then just choose something different? And then they're like, okay, maybe it's more of a reaction.
I
I'm
think
like, yeah,
any parent listening right now knows that that's true. Like
yeah,
the interesting thing that happened for me as a parent was I could feel it happening that
yeah,
my automated response to some things
mm,
was already built into my brain by how
yeah,
I was treated.
yeah, of course.
So, there was certain things that people did around me when I was being quote unquote bad or whatever. And that's my automatic response as a parent, is what happened to me. And it's like you have to like grip the wheel and like physically like
Yeah,
turning it the other way using every tool in your possible toolbox
yeah,
to like grind your teeth and be like, no, that's totally fine. Like and do it the
yeah,
opposite way that you were taught. It is
yeah,
like It does happen automatically, and it makes sense. We are,
100%.
that's the way our brains are built.
Yeah.
And we are programmed from 0 to 7, like literally programmed. So if you
Yeah.
think about your programming, what was the parenting programming that you were learning?
That's
How did
right.
they treat you? Was it with respect? Did they care about your emotions? Like, were you seen as a full human being? Were you cared about? The answer to all those is like, no, 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 no. You're going to have a hard time doing that to your spouse or to your kid.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And because, like, when you, it's so crazy because, like, when you boil it down to, like, what's at the heart of the matter, it's like your kid's basically doing something that's eliciting a trigger from an emotion that you're, like, not comfortable with sitting with yourself, which most likely neither was your mom, dad, caregiver. And, like, it's like, what is it? Like, having a kid is, like, so hard because, like, you're parenting while you're reparenting yourself. And yeah, like so every time they get to a different stage of life, it's like a new opportunity to figure out like where there's more integration to be had. Oof. That's like the hardest part as a coach is like because I've got a son and like listening to the stories, just like knowing what I know now and like how that impacts kids, like over time, especially, and just like hearing that and just because going on another side tangent, like when you don't know how to feel your feelings, especially things like, let's just say, fear or embarrassment or shame or sad, right? You just get disconnected. And again, lots of good reasons to do that. But it's so much harder to attune to a kid, to attune to your wife, to understand or to empathize with, like, ooh, that's scary, right? And like part of that too is like guys, like just generally speaking, we're bigger and we're stronger, so like not as much as a threat, right? And like most guys are just oblivious to, like, generally speaking, how unsafe women feel. Like,
Oh my
and
God.
and like,
It's crazy.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
I'm out in the world and I'm saying things statistically, like, pregnant women in the US, their number one cause of death is men. That's insane. That's
yeah.
insane.
That
But
is
men get
insane.
mad at me for saying that.
Yeah, that
They're
is
like, well,
weird.
women kill, but men do. I'm like, guys, let's focus on the problem here. And that you're showing me exactly what the problem is that
Yeah,
you cannot handle your emotions. You think if I tell you an actual statistic, I'm saying something really mean and negative about you as a person. It's like, and it's wild to see, like, growing up, I never had dreams of being the prime minister because I was told I was just a girl. Girls were too emotional, yada, 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 all that stuff. But I'm watching men, like actual figures who are running the world right now, not know that anger is an emotion,
yeah,
right? Like, men will tell you you're too emotional while punching a steering wheel.
yeah,
And you're like, this is
yeah,
a problem.
yeah.
Like, how
Well,
many wars have we had just because of this problem?
yeah, probably too many to count.
And they're not even fighting them.
Yeah,
They're sitting around eating
yeah.
while young
No,
men are dying. Like, it's like it makes me really angry, obviously. I have an anger
yeah.
problem.
Yeah. Well, it makes you really angry because we know that you're really sad too. Okay, that's what we know,
Yeah.
right? And it is really sad. And I didn't serve, but I know like guys that did, and like guys that like have actually been in war. Like will say it's like the person that's like on the other side is like not so different from you, right? And like had you been born in a different place, you'd likely be doing the same thing as them on the other side. And it's like what's at the heart of the matter is like we have feelings and emotions that like don't get talked about and don't know how to get talked about. And like actually like I've done a podcast on this, on like the idea of like, women are too emotional, or just basically like the idea of like don't be a baby, don't be a p word, if you will. And like when you think about it and you really break down what's going on when a guy tells another guy to suck it up or don't be a baby, right? It's like the guy that's having the emotion and emoting it, right, is actually risking like strongly like sharing something, let's just say, whether it's on purpose or not. That situation elicits that same emotion in the other person, the witness of it, And it makes them so uncomfortable that they have to yell or like, look one down at the person experiencing the feeling and say something to them to get them to stop. And when they stop, all of a sudden they're like, all right, that's better. Right. So who really is the baby there? Right. Which is an interesting thing to think about. Kind of to your point, it's like, oh, you're too emotional. It's like, well, you just don't realize how emotional you are actually. Right. Because most of these guys, pretty much. Well, I think everybody's like, I'm actually really sensitive. It's like, yeah, no shit. We're all really fucking sensitive. I haven't met really one person that's like not sensitive, right?
Same.
It's just that,
Everybody's
do they
very sensitive.
understand it? Yeah,
Yeah, I think like, growing up when I was in high school and university, I dated a few guys who, played football and they were, with their boys and they're very tough. And then you get them alone and they're like a couple beers deep and you're in their room of their like, messy place that they rent with their friends. And
right.
they're like, so anyways, my mom. And you're just like, whoa.
Yeah,
It's like the trauma dumping that happens. And it was so interesting for me because I was like, oh, like you are very lonely and sad. Like you are
totally,
extremely lonely and sad.
totally.
That was like a very interesting because for girls, like we talk about that stuff all the time. Like
Yeah,
all the time. We're immediately psychoanalyzing each other, figuring out our exes, how to have compassion for everybody, like da 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 da. But guys aren't doing that. Like I do that with my best friend 3 times a week. And then yeah, I just got to dip into that world and I was like, what are you guys doing when you're together? Like just hitting each other.
seriously. No, it's like, yeah, you're just like, you're usually doing things to like have fun to like not think about that, or like you're competing, right? And it's like interesting because, like, in sports, like we have this like obsession in the United States about sports, and like it's nuts to me because I was in it. Like I grew up, I was like I thought I was gonna be a major league baseball player, got drafted out of high school, and like all these things, and I'm like, it's such a small part of your life, right? Compared to like all the other things out there, but you don't ever even get to like dip your toes into any of that stuff in a lot of ways when you're like so hyper focused nowadays. So like it's interesting like when you see people go for like the Super Bowl championship, like whatever is the pinnacle of the sport, or even like if you're not like a professional athlete per se, and like you have like this competition that you're doing or this mountain that you're climbing, right? Or this figure that you want to hit in business, usually after you achieve the thing, like is actually when you get the most sad. It's crazy. But it's like I run into so many guys that like they either just like hit that goal or they did the thing, and then all of a sudden their like personal life starts falling apart, and like they have these episodes of it's never been worse, and that's usually the crisis mode that gets them to book a call with me. But it's interesting because like that is innately like what gets like instilled in us, in men a lot of times. It's like performance. Oh, okay, well then if I just get this, then I get this, and then they get this and they get that, and then it's so fleeting that they don't have any new goal to like work towards, and all of a sudden they're left with all the things that have been there this whole time, which is usually like, I'm not good enough, I'm sad, I'm hurt, I'm lonely, etc.
There's like a dopamine drop.
Yeah, I'm sure that
Dopamine is
too.
so good when
Yeah,
you're going towards a goal. And then once you get it, you're
yeah,
like, ugh, what?
yeah.
Anyway. But also, yeah, men are conditioned that that's
Oh
their
yeah,
worth. Like, oh, if you want to be loved, you want to feel important, you become a billionaire. Then you'll
yeah,
feel loved and important. And then you
yeah,
get to the finish line and you realize, oh, that was a lie. That was an
yeah,
actual lie, right? Like if you wanted to feel loved and important, that was actually something that could have happened 30 years ago when you looked in
yeah.
the mirror and met yourself for the first time.
100%. Which like, and again, so many tangents, but like when you think about the most popular video games, like they're the ones with like the constant achievements that never, ever, ever, ever end, basically. And I think that's a lot of why, like, in how we see like guys really getting into video games is because there is that like easy, low hanging fruit of all I have to do is log in. Not only that, get into this thing in this different world where it's like, it's not even me. It's like, and then I get to explore being maybe even who I really am,
Oh, I
crazy
can't even
enough.
go down the tangent of men online. It is wild.
Okay,
Um,
that is.
I just learned about how many men there are now who are running AI OnlyFans accounts.
Interesting.
An insane number of men. So it's like how AI turned into pimping so fast. And like the men are buying it. They're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, yes. Show me the AI girl." It's a wild. A guy just married his AI girlfriend. It was like officially.
I'm out of
It's
the
wild.
loop of
It
this,
is.
I'll be
I
honest.
mean, the Jack Kerouac quote, like heaven is here right now if you want it to be, is so true because hell is here right now if you want it to be. Like you
Yeah.
can rise to the heights of like the best life you could possibly have, and you can dive to the depths of like the worst, and almost all of it comes down to how much are you running away from just being here right now, feeling life, like being
Yeah.
present with life and opening up to like all of it, like the terror, the
Yeah.
love, the joy, the grief. And if you have the bravery, not even bravery, right? Because bravery is doing something without fear. Courage is doing it with fear. If you have the courage to do it, like face it, you are gonna be in heaven.
Yeah.
Like, and heaven is like connected with other people. Like that's the best feeling. We know
Yep.
from the Harvard study, the longest running study, the most important thing in everybody's life is their interpersonal relationships in
Yeah.
terms of their happiness, their health, their success.
Yeah.
Those that's the most important thing. And you know, the more you fall to what I think hell is, which is our distraction,
Yeah.
like obviously everything in moderation, but I'm going to list a bunch of stuff like going online, you know, being caught up in those worlds, drinking, smoking pot, whatever you want to do, where you're just like checked out.
Yeah.
Like you're not even present in your own life. That's hell.
Yeah.
You're missing out on like life. Like what is it now? People spend an average 17 years of their life online.
Damn.
It's insane.
That is insane. And the saddest part, MJ, is like the guys that are in those situations, like they don't realize that, like, and it goes back to like all the stuff that we talked about, but we're so under equipped to face the hell, right? So it's like, because like my belief truly is like the hell that they're in. What it's like the nervous system chooses into the familiar hell over the unfamiliar heaven, right? But the thing is like the path through that is through the hell that is feeling their feelings, right? And it's, it's the sad truth where like even when you look at like our military, like these guys, they go do the craziest courageous things on the battlefield, and that's not what takes them out. It's their feelings, right? When they get back home, like when they take their own life, right? And it's not that like they're not in, they don't understand how to process that, right? Not only did they spend an entire childhood probably of blocking those feelings out, but then they like chose into like something where it's actually probably detrimental to feel feelings, right? And that this kind of all ties back into kind of like just how hard it is to just make it sometimes, right? So you're basically asking most guys to like step or sidestep to doing something that has in a lot of ways got them in trouble or like had a really negative impact on their life,
Mhm.
to which like I'm not here to say you have to just like always feel. It's not always a smart thing to feel your feelings. Sometimes, like hypothetical, if you're storming the beaches in Normandy, don't feel your feelings, right? That being said, that is not a good long-term strategy, right? In your relationships or your business, right? That's when you start seeing practically chronic fatigue, burnout, all those things. And like at home, it's just like that's when you're going to be disconnected from your kids. You're not going to be able to attune to them, etc. So what's like the crux of the matter, guys, is like, come on, feel your feelings.
Yeah. I was talking to a man about this the other day who was a stoic, and he was very big on stoicism.
Hmm.
And I read a little bit of like Mark Anthony stuff, but I think it's interesting because in the man world, which I have infiltrated online,
Yeah.
you know, there's a lot of stoicism,
Yeah.
really
Yeah. Totally.
philosophy. But he was saying that he very rarely sees that someone understands stoicism to its, you know, its proper usage,
Right.
because you are not meant to
Not feel.
suppress your emotions.
Yeah.
That's not what stoicism is.
Right.
Mark Anthony wrote a lot of his things crying.
Yeah.
He wrote, "I'm crying right now." You know,
Yeah.
like he like let it out. But then when it came time to make decisions, he was able to make decisions from a regulated, grounded place.
Right.
And if you don't let your emotions out, you won't get there. Every
Right.
decision you make is going to be your body, your brain being hijacked.
Right. Yeah. That's so well said, MJ. Because it's like you basically don't want to choose from the emotion, is how I see it. It's like, yeah, don't choose from the emotion, but like that also means you have to develop the skills and the tools to know that you're in an emotion and
Yeah,
then to
I think a
regulate
lot of
that.
people think an emotion is the things that people do, right? Like I
Yeah.
hear all the time, "Oh, jealousy is so bad." I'm not jealous. I'm not jealous at all. And I'm like, "What? I'm crazy jealous." Like if a woman like DMs my husband, I'm like, "What does she want?" Like I'm
Yeah.
jealous. He's my husband.
Sure.
My like I love him. A lot of my life revolves around him, is dependent on him. Of course I'm jealous. And I think that's totally healthy. Now, if I start going through my husband's phone, if I start telling him the things that he can and cannot do, those
Yeah.
are actions.
Right.
That's not jealousy. That's choosing to control someone, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of people will insinuate, like, oh, this is the emotion, and here's the actions that I've experienced in relationship to that emotion before.
Mm.
Two totally different things.
Yeah. That makes perfect
Same with
sense to me.
anger. I get angry all the time. I'm not
Yeah.
yelling at people.
Right. Yeah. No, it's like such a important distinction where it's like, and that's where it is. It's like, was it acceptable to feel those feelings, right? When you were younger or not? It's like, what happens when you felt them? Did somebody like basically shun you or shame you like that? That's bad, and I shouldn't feel these.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, like you have this pent up like lifetime of not feeling the feeling. So in the moment when that gets activated, it's not just about the moment anymore. It's about that moment with the weight of your entire past history causing you to have a, like I call it like a, that's a mismatch of like the thing that happens down here, but your response just comes over the top of that.
I don't think people understand the weight of some of the quote unquote small things that happened to us as a kid. Like if you were
Yeah.
sent to your room for being angry, or if you were sent to your room for having a tantrum, like crying, that's
Yeah.
being rejected by your primary caregiver.
Yeah. And then
So
go be
for
by
you,
yourself.
you literally learned, if I show these people how I feel, I'm going to be rejected. I won't be fed, loved, cared for, nurtured. It took me decades to cry from just that, which is like the smallest thing in the laundry list of trauma that's happened in my life. Like that's such a small part of it. But
Yeah.
that groomed me to suppress my emotions. And I have to like override that, being like, you're safe. No one's going to send you to your room right now.
Right.
Like it's okay to cry.
Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of guys, especially if I could jump in, like that actually is the exact thing that confuses the hell out of guys. Because they look back at their life and they're like, it wasn't so bad. Right. And like
Mhm.
the way that I talk about it, I'm like, look, like your capacity as a kid, like it's not about what happened to you, it's about your capacity when it happened.
And if you had to struggle through it alone.
Yeah. Which,
And people don't like bullying is traumatizing.
yeah.
My husband was bullied, and it was like, for what? For being his authentic self, for being sensitive, for having
Right.
emotions. So then his nervous system learned, oh, if I present as my authentic self, having
Right.
emotions, then there's this group of older men that
Yeah.
are going to what? Physically harm me?
Right.
Like that's nuts.
Totally nuts. But like when you think about like, um, that situation, like how much like sense that response then makes where it's like, hey, don't do that thing because it's not safe to do. But like you could look back on that and be like, like was that big of a deal? Right. And
Yeah.
that's what guys will do. And like going back to like capacity and like where your nervous system's at, where your prefrontal's at, just like logically, biologically, developmentally, like just because it's easy for you to bench, like it's just I like using weightlifting a lot because like, most dudes exercise. So it's like, yeah, you're looking back with the capacity that you have now, let's just say. And it's like, yeah, sure. It's like 135 pounds, like no big deal. But think about trying to do 135 as an 8-year old, right? Then what would happen? Oh, yeah, you take the bar off and then it smashes you like on your chest, right? How likely are you to want to go do that again? Right? But we have lots of those experiences growing up that we carry on through the rest of our life, which is part of like when we see it again now, it's like we see that bar and we're like, oh shit, right? That's where we have that little or big reaction to that.
So, to you, what does the world look like with every single man on the planet starting to do this work?
Oof, it's a good question. What does the world look like? Well, definitely a more understanding and empathetic place. Like there's just like generally speaking more understanding, right? And like this is where like it's so hard because I know there's never going to be this like time where just like everything's perfect and everybody gets along cuz like there's a just an innate desire for people to just like want to do more and like grow and be more. But like where it's going to be I think most impactful is just like in the repair of, right? So like I think about like competition. Like and it's like there's only one winner, right? If there's three guys that want to date you, well guess what? Only one of them will probably be the guy, right? For example. And so there's never going to be a time where there's not going to be heartache, grief, sadness, hurt, all the things, but like we're going to have the capacity to like repair or like instead of being by ourselves in it, like be able to be with somebody else in it as opposed to like having to do it all on our own. That's kind of like what I would see is just like a general more togetherness. That's what I'd say.
You brought it back. You were talking about sports.
Hmm.
I'm a mom, right? My
Yeah.
son's maybe going to play sports. Do you think that how I choose to be with him when he loses can be a predicting factor in how he's going to be for the rest of his
Oh
life?
my
Like I'm
God.
thinking
Yeah.
back to my best friend growing up played hockey, and like
Yeah.
I remember him just like silently crying alone, and I didn't know what to
Yeah.
do, like in the back of the van when he lost.
Mm.
And like I don't think that he was like supported through that. Like I think it was
Yeah.
just like I'm a loser and my team's losers, and yeah, I could just imagine that that's a pivotal moment, like a pivotal everyday moment
Totally.
where you could like really transform the trajectory of how someone feels about themselves and the world around them in a moment of like not winning.
Yeah. The amount of stories that I hear about that, right? And it's like the sad part is like now the guy is doing it to their own kids. Like I'm finding
Mhm.
myself being the same person that I was, like, and my mom did that to me or my dad.
What do you do?
I mean, you be with them in the disappointment, right? You let them, like, you normalize it, like, ah, man, like you did the best you could, or like you did great, and it's okay to be sad. Yeah, I can tell you really cared about that, right? And you just want to normalize that. And like, I'm thankful, like, for my dad for this because I draw on him more and more because he was always my figure that attuned to me, like when I didn't know. Because like I was the oldest of four, and so whenever I would be like mean to my siblings, he wouldn't like be like knock that shit off or like don't do that. He'd be like, "Hey, you okay?" And it's
Mm.
like, "Yeah, I'm fine." Like, why wouldn't I be okay? Right? And there was never any pressure like after a good or a bad game. Like with baseball, I was a big baseball guy. I think I already said that. Like my parents like never pushed me. They just like supported me doing the thing that I absolutely love to do. And if we lost, we lost. Like there was no like anything about it. And again, talking about feelings, it's like what feeling does it bring up for you? Like when you see your kid do bad or when you see your kid have a hard time or strike out, right? It's like, like, I can't stop yelling at my kid. Like when he strikes out, I don't want him to look a certain way, basically. Oh, interesting, right? Kids having a hard time with an emotion, right? But parents will take that personally, right? And this is specifically generally for guys where it's like, oh, that means I'm not doing a good job, therefore I'm not good enough. Performance based, that brings up all the shit that we talked about for dudes mostly. Again, it's like internalized sadness and shame and all this stuff about like, ah, shit, I'm not good enough or I can't get it right. Because again, we're so performance based and performance usually equals like, I'm seen, right, to a certain degree. I mean, generally speaking, in our United States culture, it's like performance gets you seen.
Yeah, I get that in a different way. Like as a mom, definitely when I would go out in the world before having kids and I would see a mom and her kids melting down, I would be like, If only she knew,
Yeah.
she just had to
Yeah.
regulate her own nervous system,
Yeah.
and the children would just be calm. Like, I was like, I literally had no experience with kids, or I had no idea.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
now that I'm 2 toddlers,
Oh my
I'm
God.
like, "Oh my god, I was so ignorant."
Yeah. Me too.
Like the mom sitting there calmly waiting for her child to have finished their tantrum and just being like, "It's okay, cry, let it out. I know you're frustrated, but we're not buying that." That mom is a good mom. Like,
Good
she's
mom.
doing a really good job.
Yeah,
It's
so
like the
good.
parents, whenever I see the parents online and their kids are like always so perfect or dressed exactly the way that
Yeah.
the mom wanted them to dress, I'm like, I know that was a hell morning getting up there. Like,
Yeah. Or that
my
was just
my
a
daughter's
two
leaving with like
second
a little
moment.
around her head.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
That was
it's
a freeze frame in time for 2 seconds when it was all put together, and then
yeah,
everything else was
exactly,
chaos.
exactly. It's
Totally.
yeah, they have to. They are the barometers of the world. Like, they have to let it out.
Yeah.
And,
Well, and it's like, and that's another thing like social media has kind of done is like put more pressure on an already difficult thing. And like, I think that's like, and I always stress this in my coaching containers, like, especially with dads, I'm like, look, parenting is, and like, to your point, MJ, I was one of those guys where it's just like, oh, they just don't know, right? If they only knew, like, and before that, it was like, oh my God, like, what are they doing? Like, do something. Like, the kid's obviously in distress. Like, you're like not attuning or whatever it was. And it's actually like, no, no. But just how hard it is to be a parent. It is the hardest fucking thing there is, period. Right?
mhm.
Because, like, so common, it's like, yeah, oh, he knows or she knows, my kid. They're just not doing it on purpose. I'm like, bro, you know what a fucking prefrontal cortex is, dude?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
there
I
are
think parents should have to
adults.
take a mandatory class on child development.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
that would
Like,
be
here's when
amazing.
they actually know how to share. Here's when they
Yeah.
actually know how to, like, maybe regulate their emotion. Haha, it's 25.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, I think that would just really help a lot of people. Even when it comes to sleep, what's normal biological sleep?
Yeah.
A lot of people have no idea. Your kids should not be sleeping through the night. That's actually very
Yeah.
dangerous. So I think, yeah, and this is like the blessing of parenting now is that, and the annoyance to my mom, where I'm like, actually, she's like, you think you know everything, and I'm like, well, I do read parenting books.
Just
How
more
many have
than
you read?
you.
No. We know now. We know what yelling does to kids. We know
Yeah.
what hitting does to kids.
Yeah.
It's like you can't argue with me on that. We have something called a study, and it shows like if you hit your kids, guess what? We're in the culture of kids leaving parents behind.
Totally.
Like,
Well,
I know I have so many friends they're just like, I don't talk to my parents.
yeah.
They hit me, they're not taking responsibility for it. I don't want them around me.
Peace.
And I like when I see people arguing for that online, I'm like, you are
I
signing
know.
up to sit alone in a
Yeah.
retirement home drooling.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're talking about like my Instagram comment section right now, MJ. But yeah, but here's the thing. It's like the unfortunate or fortunate part is like fear can be effective in the moment, right? And that's where people are like, yeah, but it works. That's
But
like,
not 20 years from now.
exactly,
Because
right?
they
And
get out in
like,
the world and they think, you know what? That was messed up.
100%,
I don't want
100%.
anything to do with you.
Oh, yeah. Well, and like when you think about it, like when you're, and it's like, it's crazy because like spanking, right? It's crazy that we call it spanking. It's fucking hitting, right? Is okay to do to a child that's like less powerful and has no say than you. But if your boss
And
were
they're
to
the baby.
come over here and spank you, right? Or some random stranger were to spank you, or some random stranger were to discipline your kids in that way, that would be like, well, assault, that would be like sexual assault, that would be like abuse, right? But like for some crazy reason,
Yeah, I don't
it's
even
okay.
I'll go too around that. But
It's
yes,
so,
that
so
is a
crazy.
good game to play with yourself. If I did this to another adult,
Yeah.
if I locked this adult in a room
Yeah.
12 hours a day and didn't see to their needs at all, and if I didn't change them when they pooped, they were puking because they were crying too hard, and I just was like, oh, I'll get you in 7 a.m.
Yeah.
No, you would go to jail.
Yeah.
You would
Seriously.
literally go to jail. I'm don't get me riled up. But yeah, I think there's a what is it? Childism is where we just like some people just don't think children are people.
Yeah.
They don't
Yeah.
treat them like people at all,
Yeah.
and that they are. And the thing that's redeeming for me, seeing that stuff and like wanting all those babies to come live at my house,
Mm.
is that I pray they grow up and they find a group of friends and they find someone to love and they can just leave that world behind.
Yeah.
They can just find love, find a loving space. It doesn't have to be your biological parents. Just find that, find people you connect with, and just leave them behind.
Yeah.
Like if they don't show an ounce of mercy, like if they don't show an ounce of, remorse,
Yeah.
just ditch them.
Yeah.
Like I'm a big fan of like if someone's not treating you right, you don't have any blood is not thicker than water.
That is like, it's such an important thing to know because, like, for the longest time, for lots of good reasons, it like blood was thicker than water because if you, like, when you think about it, like, evolutionarily speaking, if like it wasn't, then you'd be dead, right? Because you only had like this small group of people,
Or resources, right? Like there was your class is like, you're going to lose your title. Like look at Harry, like he's lost his title because he was unwilling to,
right?
you know, play down the racism of his family for
Right.
his wife and kids now.
Yeah. It's
Like imagine
nuts.
having kids where they were like half black around people who were making comments. Like that'd be so uncomfortable. I know people hate on them. I don't. I'm like, I could totally see my family's from England. I know they fucked up.
Yeah. Well, and it's like a lot of times now, at least what I see is like a family system is usually 99.99% of the time the thing that actually like digs the ruts deeper of these like negative cycles. And we use like blood is thicker than water or family first to like excuse really, really, really bad behavior, right?
Mhm.
And then like all of a sudden, like, you know, we'll get married and then our spouse is like, that is so not okay. And you're like, wait, what are you talking about? This is normal. It's not, oh, it's not normal for like my mom to shame me into having to come over for Easter or Thanksgiving or whatever it is. That's
No,
weird.
you make like your new family arms.
Yeah.
And like, this is who we are now as this family
Yeah.
right now. And if the grandparents aren't joining us, then bye bye. Like you're not in because this is how we treat each other now. It's a hard thing to do because you don't want to get caught up in like being loyal to someone who's abusive to you
Well, it's the
over
hardest.
your wife who's like loves you, right? And it's just like this is what we do now. We're kind. We don't yell.
Yeah,
Family function, you're not getting drunk. Like, and if that's what you want to do, you want to yell and get drunk, then you're going to Thanksgiving at someone else's house.
totally. And like, simple, right? Maybe not easy
Yeah,
because
my
it's like,
husband says they're not going to burst our love bubble. And
yeah,
I'm like, I love that.
yeah. Well, it's like, Stan Tatkin talks about like the relationship bubble, the couple bubble, and that's like so true. It's like it is you and your husband, and then like everything else. Like Stan calls it a third, trying to like get in there. But like family of origin, we're talking about final boss here. I always use like video game references and like fitness references, right? Because it very much like everybody. Oh yeah, 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 get that. And it's like, oh man, I went back to my for Christmas or whatever, or this or that. And like, fuck, all my shit that I would work on, it's all gone. And I'm like, dude, it's Final Boss. Of course, right? You went back to the place where this all originated from. Of course, you're gonna have like monumental reactions to something there versus like, in your house with your wife who, yeah, you have a history with, but it doesn't go back all the way back there, right? So, yeah.
Thank you for coming on, Jason. I feel like I could talk to you for another hour, but I won't.
Same, same.
Well, where can people find you, work with you, learn from you? I love your Instagram.
Yeah, on Instagram, that's where I hang out mostly. Jason Schnitzer Coaching. I've got a podcast that I haven't posted to in a while, but I'm gonna start solo casting again. It's the Self Control Show. So, I mean, basically, most of my content is kind of like would you call it like in your face a little bit? Just kind of like the mirror of like, hey, you're
It's
doing
blunt.
this. It's pretty blunt. It's pretty direct. It's pretty like
That's why you probably trigger so many people who do it.
yeah, it's pretty share friendly to maybe somebody that's like aware but not aware, right? If your husband, like I get again, 99.9% of the guys that I end up on a complimentary call with, it's basically like, so I don't really know you, but like my wife follows you. So check me out on there. And if they don't have social media like YouTube and Spotify, I've got some podcasts on there that guys like can learn more about like practically what's going on in their life and kind of why that's happening or what's happening to like maybe shine a little more light if they're not quite ready to be like, okay, I need to figure this out or I need to learn more about me before I reach out. Yeah.
Amazing. But you guys can't see this, but he just did a really cute little like shrug at the end. Like,
Yeah.
yep, that's
Yeah.
me. Okay, well, thank you so much for coming on. It's been, it's been really enlightening. It's always, I love these conversations because I had to go through the process myself of like unlearning man hate culture.
Mm,
I had to
yeah.
unlearn that. And, on the other side of that is like humanness. Like these are humans and they're like struggling just as much as women are struggling with their own different sets of pressures and things. And the only way out is through. Like we're not going to get out the other end by othering and hating on each other. It will only
Totally.
be through helping each other and listening to each other and understanding each other. We are all in relationship, whether we like it or not, because we're all on this planet together. So
That's right.
thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you.